Dear students, good morning. I am Dr. Ghulam Mahmud Lone. Today the topic is antidiarrheals. As you know, the classification of antidiarrheal is given on the, I would say, on KD Tripathi, page number 731, that you have to go through it, and there is a classification clearly given into so many headings, like we have antimicrobial drugs, there we have a different, I would say, drugs like norfloxacin, ciprofloxacin, which you have not gone through, but in the this antibiotics you will go through it. Ofloxacin, rifaximin, cotrimazole, tetracycline, erythromycin, metronidazole. Then we have probiotics, lactobacillus species, bifidobacterium, bifidium, streptococcus faecalis, enterococcus species, and we have bacillus, Kalazi, and others. And from the drugs for inflammatory bowel disease, we have 5-ASA, acetyl salicylic acid compounds, we have sulfasalazine, mesalazine, balsalazine, olsalazine. Then we have glucocorticosteroids, we have prednisolone that you have gone through, and it has additional for inflammatory bowel disease, prednisolone, hydrocortisone. Then we have non-specific antidiarrheals, adsorbents, and methylcellulose, isofagula. Then we have antisecretory drugs, like we have other anticholinergics in this, and we have antimotility drugs, codeine, diphenoxylate, loperamide, then immunosuppressants, azathioprine, methotrexate, cyclosporine, TNF inhibitor, infliximab. So these things you have to, I must say, classification. If we will describe one drug, then it will also be very, very lengthy. Now, introduction I am going. Diarrheal disease is a major cause of morbidity and mortality in developing countries, particularly in developing countries. Diarrhea is passage of too frequent, poorly formed watery stools. It could be due to various causes like infection, toxins, anxiety, and drugs. Diarrhea in India kills more than 5 million children per year. Recurrent diarrhea is major cause of, I would say, PEM in children. And then we have, maintenance of the water and electrolyte balance in GIT. Daily entry of fluid into GIT tract. Ingestion of food and water, we need 2.5 liters. And metabolic processes in body endogenously 7.5 liters. Total we have 10 liters absorbed in SI in epithelial cells as well as in colon. Ultimate fluid content in feces governed by, we have a glucose, I would say, linked sodium and water absorption due to osmotic gradient. Then we have a secretion of chloride ions in the gut linked with secretion of the sodium and water. So gut mortality increases peristalsis in diarrhea due to various reasons. Then types of diarrhea. We have a secretory diarrhea, when intestinal wall loses its functional integrity or gets damaged, resulting in an increased secretion of electrolytes into the intestinal tract. It could be due to bacterial infection, Shigella, Salmonella, bacterial endotoxin from E. coli, Vibrio cholerae, viral infection, rotavirus, or underlying pathology, inflammatory bowel disease due to side effects of the drugs, like we have antibiotics. And then motility disorder diarrhea. It is increased motility is decreased the contact period of the fecal mass. So there is the gastric hurry with the intestinal wall, so that lesser amount of water is absorbed back from the feces, that we call as the IBS, or that we call as the irritable bowel syndrome. Now, cause of diarrhea. Infective diarrhea. This is particularly in the A category. We have traveler's diarrhea due to enterotoxigenic strands of E. coli, other bacteria, Shigella, Salmonella, virus, rotavirus, self-limiting. B, we have others like cholera, we call it diarrhea in typhoid fever. Protozoal infection, Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia lamblia. Opportunistic pathogens like we have Clostridium difficile, Pseudomembranous colitis. It is opportunistic pathogen. Then we have non-infective diarrhea, food and toxins, anxiety, drugs, drug-induced also non-infective. Drugs that increase gastric motility. We have choline esters like others, anticholinesterase, prokinetic agents, metoclopramide, domperidone, antibacterial agents that alter the gut flora when given orally, that is broad spectrum antibiotics, tetracycline, chloramphenicol, clindamycin, ampicillin. Others we have colchicine. Now treatment of diarrhea, this is very important. Mainstay of treatment is to correct the fluid and electrolyte imbalance, which is the cause of death. Prompt administration of fluid and electrolyte is life-saving. Non-specific treatment, we have correlation of fluid and electrolyte imbalance by ORS, oral rehydration, salt, and IV fluids as per severity of the dehydration. It depends. If there is no vomiting, ORS is the mainstay of the treatment. If there is, vomiting also, IV fluid as per severity of the dehydration. How many, dehydrations takes place through stools or through vomiting, that you have to see. And adequate nutrition to prevent malnutrition. This is also very important. To maintain normal turnover of the gastric mucosal cells. To maintain normal enzymatic activity, disaccharidase to help in the absorption of the glucose, salt and water taken orally. Now, oral rehydration therapy, it is very important, particularly in the children. ORT restores and maintains hydration, electrolyte and pH balance, and is life-saving in most cases. ORT with sodium chloride, glucose and water, these are the three main constituents which take part in the oral rehydration therapy. In the ileum, glucose enhances absorption of the sodium and water follows. Does not correct diarrhea. ORT fluid loss of more than 5 to 10% of body water, then ORT is very important. IV rehydration, fluid loss when more than 10% body water or losing more than 10 ml per kg per hour. So you have to maintain this, how many mLs are being lost by the body per kg. Then we have a rehydration with ORS. This is the WHO guideline. You have to remember this at the tip of the tongue. Now content, what are the contents in this or this rehydration? We have sodium chloride 2.6, we have to take it approximately. And then we have potassium chloride 1.5 gram. Then trisodium citrate 2.9 gram. And glucose we have 13.5 gram. And water we have to add 1 liter. The total osmolarity becomes 245 milliosmolars per liter. So then the concentration of sodium chloride we have 2.6 grams, it comes to 75 millimole. And potassium chloride we have 1.5 grams, the potassium comes 20 millimole. And trisodium citrate 2.9 gram, it comes chloride, main constituent is 65 millimole of the chloride. Then citrate we have 10 millimole, and glucose as such is 75 millimole. So this is the content, and this is the concentration. It can be asked to you in the examination also. So you have to, this is the WHO guideline, the major salts what are and what is the concentration almost, and it is concentration is millimole, and here total osmolarity is 245 milliosmolar per liter. Then we have rationale of ORS composition. Should be isotonic or hypotonic, and should have concentration 200 to 320 milliosmolar per liter. It is a range because in villages you cannot weigh it. If you have sodium chloride, potassium chloride, or glucose and salt and with water, you can give it. So molar ratio of glucose is, and it is more, I mean, say sodium. Enough potassium, it is 15 to 25 millimole. And enough bicarbonate straight is 8 to 12 millimole to make up the loses in stools. So this is the ORS. If we lose the, I mean say water and all these salts through loose motion, this is the, I mean say composition. Then we have non-diarrheal use of the ORP. Post-surgical, post-burn, post-trauma. So post-surgical there is a dehydration, post-burn there is a dehydration, post-trauma there is a dehydration. So non-diarrheal use of the ORT is very important. And rehydration and nutrition. We have to rehydrate ourselves, and during the nutrition we can give it. Heat stroke, at that time there is a non-diarrheal use of the ORT. To change from parenteral to oral. So a person is having the parenteral, I would say, administration. After that he cannot be continuously taken for the parenteral, then you have to give the oral route. Now specific treatment classification I have already tabulated on the Tripathi, you go through it. And classification of antidiarrheals is non-antimicrobial antidiarrheals, anti-motility agents, diphenoxylate, loperamide, and codeine are the main, I mean, say, drugs. Anticholinergic agents, we have atropine or scopolamine. Specific agents, we have antimicrobials. There we have cotrimoxazole, norfloxacin, doxycycline, erythromycin, metronidazole. Antisecretory agents, we have sulfasalazine, mesalazine. And then anti-motility drugs, we have diphenoxylate and codeine. Now common properties. They are opioid in nature. Actions are mediated through mu and delta. Opioid receptors present in enteric neuronals, and direct actions on the intestinal smooth muscle is seen. So here they act on the enteric neurons. The pharmacological properties, why we give codeine and like that, they have mu receptors decrease propulsive. So they are, I mean say, it can be, I mean say, blunted. Diarrhea can be blunted because of the propulsion is inhibited. So movements can be, I mean say, movements can be decreased, and increased absorption. Absorption can be enhanced. So increased small bowel tone. So small bowel tone can be increased. Diminished intestinal secretion. So intestinal secretion can be lowered. So delta receptors, we have prompt absorption. So there are two types of receptors, mu receptors and delta. Delta receptors have work that they promote absorption and inhibit secretion. Overall, they increase the luminal transient time. So they increase the luminal transient time because there is a gastric hurry in the area. So they increase the luminal transient time. So they, I mean, say, stop this moment. Now codeine we take. Opioid, alkaloid, it is an alkaloid, opioid, and dose is 60 milligrams 3 times a day. So peripheral action on intestine and colon is constipative. No central action. Less dependent liability. If you continuously use it, there is a less dependence. Side effects, we have nausea, vomiting, dizziness, but we have to take caution in children. Diphenoxylate. It is a synthetic opioid. Action is similar to codeine, causing constipation. Most marked antidiarrheal effect is there. It crosses blood-brain barrier, and so there are CNS effects. Paralytic ileus, toxic megacolon in children. It causes respiratory depression also. So, but it is contraindicated in children less than 6 years. So, diphenoxylate is a synthetic opioid. It has an antidiarrhea, but we have to be cautious that children, it is contraindicated less than 6 years. Now, loperamide. This is the opiate analog. It has a peripheral mu opioid receptors with weak anticholinergic activity. It inhibits secretion by directly interacting with calcium and modulin. It, it inhibits secretion by direct interacting with calmodulin, more potent than codeine in causing constipation. CNS effects are rare, so loperamide is more than diphenoxylate. So very little absorbed from the intestine, no abuse liability, and then long duration, it has 12 hours. It can be taken once or twice, then codeine and diphenoxylate. Most effective and best tolerated antimotility drug, but it has also adverse effects. Abdominal cramps, rash, paralytic ileus, toxic megacolon, abdominal distension. Now loperamide is there, contraindication in children less than 4 years. Uses, antimotility drugs are used in non-ineffective diarrhea, traveler's diarrhea, idiopathic diarrhea in AIDS. And contraindication is in ineffective diarrhea, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome as they increase intraluminal pressure. So it is contraindicated in these, conditions. Like we have infective diarrhea, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, because there is an intraluminal pressure. So we have not to give these drugs in these conditions. Now preparations and dosage. Diphenoxylate we give 2.5 milligrams, but with this diphenoxylate we add atropine 0.025 milligrams. So 2 to 4 tablets stat, then 1 tablet every 6 hours. So diphenoxylate 2.5 milligrams, atropine 0.025 milligrams. Then loperamide 4 milligram stat we give, then 2 milligram every 6 hours. So that means in 24 hours we have to give 8 milligrams. So loperamide. Then anticholinergics. Atropine decreases bowel motility because it is anticholinergic and secretion. Where there is an anticholinergic, there is a decrement of the bowel motility and secretion. You have to remember it. Poor efficacy in secretory diarrhea. We don't have much efficacious. It is not efficacious in secondary diarrhea. Use we have in nervous and drug-induced neostigmine, in dysentery and diverticulitis. So these are the anticholinergic use. The role of antimicrobials in diarrhea. It is regularly useful in cholera, tetracycline, cotrimazole, especially in children. So the role of antimicrobial is very important in diarrhea. So regular use, we have to use it in the tetracycline cholera, like tetracycline, cotrimazole, especially in children. Campylobacter jejuni, norfloxacin, erythromycin. Clostridium difficile, pseudomembranous colitis, we give metronidazole. Amoebiasis and giardiasis, we give metronidazole, diloxanide, furoate. So these are the enteric infection. You'll come to know in the MSA what are the different types of the antibiotics. Metronidazole is given in anaerobe, so it is enteric infection. It is anaerobe amoebiasis, so we give metronidazole and diloxanide, furoate. Then we have useful in severe states of traveler's disease, traveler's diarrhea caused by E. coli. When you go in the bus and there is diarrhea, that we call it traveler's diarrhea. And Campylobacter, norfloxacin, cotrimazole, doxycycline, erythromycin, these are the drugs should be given. And Shigella enteritis as with blood and mucus, because Shigella there is enteritis, there is a blood loss and mucus, and we use the ciprofloxacin, naldexic acid and norfloxacin. Then we have Salmonella enteritis, there is a fluoroquinolone and ampicillin. Then enterocolitis, we give Y-pestites and cotrimazole, ciprofloxacin. So enterocolitis is because of the pestis, and we give cotrimazole, ciprofloxacin. Mostly in these situations, cotrimazole doxycycline, ciprofloxacin, nalidixic acid, norfloxacin, these were called as the fluoroquinolones, ampicillin, drugs in the severe state of, diarrhea, like traveler's disease, Shigella, Salmonella, and enterocolitis. Then role of antimicrobials in diarrhea is continued. Never use we should not use the antimicrobials in the irritable bowel syndrome because it makes the severe condition. And celiac disease, tropical spree, and diverticulitis and ulcerative colitis. These are the 5 diseases where we have not encouraged to give the antimicrobials. Never, it is contraindicated. Then thank you. And then we have non-specific antimicrobials. In non-specific antidiarrheals, we have anti-secretory drugs. That we have sulfasalazine, mesalazine, anticholinergics, opioids, and sulfasalazine. It is a compound of 5-amino salicylic acid with sulfapyridine linked by azo bond. So azo bond is split by colonic bacteria. So these are the 2 drugs, and the 2 drugs, sulfasalazine composed of 2 drugs. Once you give it, and this bond is, it's a sort of a prodrug, we can say. And when you give it, it transforms in the colon. In the azo bond is it's linked by azo bond, and azo bond is split by colonic bacteria to release 5-ASA, acetyl salicylic acid, and sulfapyridine. So 2 drugs are there, and the bacteria, colonic bacteria releases these 2 drugs separately, and 5-ASA has local anti-inflammatories. 5-ASA is locally, effective, and the sulfapyridine goes inside in the systemic compartment in the blood. So 5-ASA works locally. Then what is sulfasalazine mechanism of action? Poorly absorbed from intestine. Naturally it affects there. So azo bond is split by colonic bacteria to release 5-ASA and sulfapyridine that I have told you. So migration of inflammatory cells into bowel wall is decreased. So 5-ASA, 5-ASA, acetyl salicylic acid, they act there, and their action is anti-inflammatory, and then exerts anti-inflammatory and anti-secretory effect there. Now sulfasalazine uses ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. At that time there is a diarrhea, so it affects their ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. This is irritable bowel, and this is called as the inflammatory bowel syndrome, IBS. Another is the irritable bowel syndrome, there is the inflammatory bowel syndrome. No antibacterial action is seen. Adverse effects, it has absorbed sulfapyridine causes rash. So once it is absorbed, there is a sulfur drug, so there is a rash, there is a fever, there is a joint pain, then there is a hemolysis and blood dyskaryosis, headache, anemia, and we have folic acid deficiency here. Now this is sulfasalazine, this is the bond and double bond, and then it comes to 2,5-ASA, mesalamine and sulfapyridine. Then 5-ASA acts as an anti-inflammatory. Then mesalazine, it is 5-ASA active moiety. It is formulated as delayed release preparation. It delivers 5-ASA to distal small bowel and colon. What is its use? In prevention of the relapse in ulcerative colitis. So mesalazine acts, it prevents the relapse. So ulcerative colitis is there, but relapse is not there. It is a very chronic disease. Adverse effects of we have nausea, diarrhea, abdominal pain, headache, rash, and hypersensitivity reactions. Then we have nephrotoxicity also. So mesalazine, these are the adverse effects. Contraindication is renal and hepatic disease. Then we have corticosteroids. Prednisolone 40 mg per day we give in inducing remission in ulcerative colitis. So once we give that, if there is a failure in that mesalazine or other 5-ASA, then it inducing remission in ulcerative colitis, the corticosteroids, or Crohn's disease, drug of choices, exacerbations. So this is the drug of choice when there is a relapse, when the disease comes again and again. Hydrocortisone enema in distal ulcerative colitis, proctitis. So hydrocortisone enema is also used in distal ulcerative colitis where there is diarrheal disease, proctitis. Thank you very much. Hope you have understood it. And please, if you have any query, you can ask. Thank you very much. Hope you would have understood it.